Welcome to Combos from the Couch by LifeStance Health, where leading mental health professionals help guide you on your journey to a healthier, more fulfilling life.
7 people were killed during that crash near Reagan National Airport in Washington, D.C. This is the single deadliest plane crash in the U.S. in a generation. 2 days later, a medical transport jet crashed into a residential area in northeast Philadelphia, killing 6 people on board and 1 person on the ground.
Recent airplane incidents have changed how many of us feel about flying. Even seasoned travelers are experiencing concerns about flying. I'm Nicolette Lianza, and I'm joined today by therapist Jonathan McIntosh, and he'll be giving us some tools to help with our anxieties over flying. So welcome, Jonathan. Great to have you on.
Thank you. I'm glad to be on.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm a psychotherapist in Chicagoland. I deal with depression, anxiety. I help people with mood disorder and ADHD. I also do couples counseling and work with adolescents and adults.
So I'm assuming in your experience, you've definitely come across some people who've been showing a little bit of an increase in flying recently.
Absolutely, yes. There's been a lot more of that.
So tell us, why do some people develop a fear of flying?
Yes, so a fear of flying can be many things. It can be aviophobia, which is the technical term for the fear that someone will be in a plane crash, basically, or fear of the general process giving them anxiety. It can be claustrophobia. It can be a trauma response to things in the past, as well as it can just be, hey, I'm worried that these events that I'm reading about in the news are terrifying. And
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of what we're seeing currently too, of hearing about these incidents are really making people feel a bit more worried to fly.
yeah.
So what does the fear of flying tell us about anxiety, fear, trauma, and stress?
Yeah. It can tell us that it's not just one thing. It can be many things. It can be a trauma response, like I was saying. It can also be the fear that something awful might be happening to someone, a feeling of a loss of control. It can be triggered by a multitude of things. You know,
And so what's interesting is that I don't think a lot of times people understand that. Oftentimes it might be just assuming it's one thing, that maybe one airplane trip that they took had a lot of turbulence and made them afraid or something. But there's actually many different reasons that can lead to someone having a fear of flying or being anxious about it. So what are some tools and techniques for managing anxiety over flying?
yes. So there are specific apps for it. Some of them are made to give tips about what to do in terms of breathing exercises or dealing with the symptoms as they come up. Some of the apps will have information on flight turbulence, scheduling of things. There's one collection of clinical interventions called CBT that can basically walk someone through the workflow of a thought, the reaction to the thought, and kind of like how those two affect each other. CBT is more manualized than other approaches, which makes it so that they can easily repeat it in clinical trials or things like that. So they can measure exactly what helps with these things, as well as also just interpersonal psychotherapy, where the talking cure, where someone talks about the foundations of their problems and what these anxieties stem from.
I Jumping back to CBT, which stands for cognitive and behavioral therapy, I think we're looking at if someone has the thoughts of, oh my gosh, I'm going to die, or something really, maybe even some irrational thinking related to it. I think what we're looking as therapists with CBT is helping them recognize the wonky thinking, per se, the cognitive distortions, and helping them reframe it to help them navigate that anxiety a bit. Yeah, no, very helpful. Can you share with us some specific resources people can use to decrease their anxiety over flying?
Yeah, as well as the apps, there's a fun album actually that was made for this. It's on Brian Eno when he was working with David Bowie. Brian Eno, the rock production person. When he was doing an album with David Bowie, he took time off to do an instrumental album called Music for Airports. Sorry, called Music for Airports, made to be played in airports for people to calm down their fears. And it's nice piano-based loops and kind of nebulous vocal sounds interspersed through it that do have a kind of grounding effect. There's the apps also there that I mentioned. There's breathing exercises one can do, breathing in, holding the breath, and breathing out longer than you would put the breath in. These often will work too.
The music for airports, you had before our podcast, you had sent a link of that, and it is very lovely music, and I found myself playing it even though I'm not flying anytime soon. But yeah, it's very comforting, very relaxing, and I think there is an app for everything, and why not use the apps to help navigate for sure? So,
Why not? Yeah.
hey, use our technology, definitely. Any other insights you would like to share?
I like to share that it's not always a one size fits all issue. There are sometimes deep seated issues that are bubbling up from this or that are at the foundation of it. And for those, it's kind of like you don't try it at home sometimes. This is outside of just I'm having the jitters, but if someone is really avoiding these experiences to a worrying degree, it is good to do the more interactive types of therapy where someone's going to be looking into your past and finding out the foundations of these things. There's the idea with psychoanalyst C.W. Winnicott called the fear of breakdown, which basically explains that there can have been a primal first experience that someone had, which they have a fear of meeting again of experiencing again with the therapist. So the idea is that both people in a supportive environment don't shy away from these original traumas, these original difficulties that someone has had in their childhood. So it really depends because the mind doesn't always, you can't always know ahead of time what these things come from. Yeah.
It's interesting with that point, if someone's coming in per se to you to talk about maybe some anxiety surrounding flying, and maybe you're starting off with some CBT or even some imaginal exposure therapy, something like that. But then you might discover there are deeper rooted things going on where you might then dive in more with the client with that stuff to help resolve that.
Yeah,
So sometimes we don't know, but you might be coming in for one thing and then diving in a little deeper.
exactly. It's very common in therapy for someone to come in and say, hey, I have X, Y, and Z concerns. And slowly, as those kind of get teased out, you discover, oh no, I have a different goal, or this is really bothering me in a new way. And there can be way more to the plot than that.
Definitely. My gosh. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Even just the soothing level of your voice. So hopefully help our listeners less nervous about flying in our recent last few months have been a little rough for the airline industry, but with some of your tips, hopefully our listeners can use those and help soothe their worries. So thank you again.
Thank you. Glad to be on here.
I'd also like to thank the team behind the podcast, Jason Clayton and Juliana Wooden. Thank you for listening to Converse from the Couch. Take care, everyone.